Hello, hello. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Ryan, the pessimist.
I'm Carlos, the optimist.
And this is Optimist versus Pessimist. OVP. And you know what? No moves of the week today.
No moves?
No moves, no news. None of that. But we will have a quick discussion because this is kind of old by the time this comes out. But we are talking about right now the character, the new DLC character, because I don't know if you guys remember this, but we had a whole episode dedicated to us speculating about who the new Smash character was going to be.
Yes, Smash. We're talking about Smash.
Smash Brothers. They're not saying Super Smash Brothers Ultimate.
I thought you were building up to it for a really long
No,
time.
that was unintentional. So we're talking about Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. The fifth character has been announced and is also released already for a little bit here, and her name or his name is Byleth from the final Fire Emblem series. Now,
You're going to say Final Fantasy.
I was going to say Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem, you know what, they're all the same.
They're the same. They're all Japanese. There's no distinction.
So, thoughts on this great character choice?
Okay, so I was mad at first, initially really mad. Because, of course, it just seems like... So we've assumed, this is a complete assumption, we have no inside information, that Sakurai's favorite game series is Fire Emblem, because that's what it feels like.
I think there is not even speculation, but like he literally loves that series.
Oh, okay. Has it been confirmed?
I believe so. Yes.
Right. Okay. So.
But even still, though, this isn't the whole point for me for the DLC characters was that we were supposed to kind of expand on who could potentially
instead
be one.
Of just getting essentially what are. I don't want to say they're reskins because she does play differently and interestingly, so that kind of won me over a little bit.
Yeah.
It just feels like we could have given that moveset to a different character.
Or we could just not have Fire Emblem. I think the big problem is not obviously the character itself, because the character is a bit slow, but I think they play okay. I'm not a high tier player.
Right.
A lot of the high tier players are not happy about Byleth. They don't think that she's a good character. She's too slow. There's a lot of stuff that they don't like about her. So
that upbeat spike is an interesting, different kind of move.
I would imagine it's hard.
That kind of like Ivy-ish style whip that she seems to have, like
right.
That
okay.
save is cool.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest problem with this is it's just that we had Banjo-Kazooie, we had like Terry Bogard, like we had. Is it Bogard his last name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had all these different outside characters, and then we ended on like the worst note possible. Another Fire Emblem character.
Yeah, it's hard, man, because I'm assuming that there's a huge contingent of fans that must love this. Because if I'm not mistaken, Fire Emblem goes in like there's eras. So like Ike's era is not the same as like Chrome's era, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like the Hero of Time, Hero of the Winds, kind of like the same Zelda style. Like we have different eras. And different heroes, so I imagine that the people that are invested in the series are excited that they're getting like the different era heroes, because it's a very long running, very like
yeah. Byleth is from Three Houses, which is the newest Fire Emblem series.
Right.
So another problem that other people are having, me not as much, but I understand why, is that it's a clear marketing gimmick, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to push. There's some new DLC. Coming.
Yeah, of course.
It's
like you'd call it like a brand synergy in the business world.
So it wasn't Crash Bandicoot. Wasn't Sly Cooper.
Okay,
wasn't anything interesting.
I guess this is fine for now, as long as there's only one Fire Emblem character in this DLC pack. Set.
The DLC set is now over. So next year, for the next I think couple years, we're gonna have another 6 characters.
That's what I heard, yes.
So, who knows what's going to happen with that?
So we can't have any more because we're up to what now? So there's
about 9?
There's 9 Fire Emblem characters?
Maybe 8 or 9. There's Roy, Marth, Lucina, Robin,
Chrom, and Byleth, right?
Byleth?
That's it.
Byleth, I think there's a 7th one that we're just forgetting at the moment. It's tough. It's tough to remember this stuff. I think right now maybe there's just 6, but even 6.
That's a lot.
That's more than Legend of Zelda.
It's more than Mario.
No, it's not more than Mario. No, but still, Mario and Legend of Zelda. These are the biggest franchises for Nintendo.
They're like the Batman and Superman, respectively.
Sure. Yeah. So again, I'm a bit disappointed. Yes, the character is fun to play. But yeah.
I like the Fire Emblem aesthetic, so I don't hate that the characters get in the game. And I like Marth and Roy were my favorites in in Melee, in classic Melee. Like they were those special like Japan only. You know, it was like a mystery to little baby me. Like, oh, there's games. You know, actually, speaking of Smash, that's something that always mystified me. Is that Smash Brothers was the first time I figured out that there was different games in different countries that don't come out all across the board.
Right.
I just assumed that all games come out in all countries, but
Well, I mean, it's maybe they do. A lot of them do come out here. They're just not as popular, or they're rebranded, like the Mother franchise,
right,
which is called Earthbound here.
right. But not all of them do that.
That's
There's
true.
a bunch of like Mario versus Wario games that I've always wanted to play.
And they're not here?
They're just Japan only. And it's cool. He's got like a... Wario's got like a bucket that like mind controls him.
Oh, okay.
And like it gets into some stuff, man. Like
Okay.
some interesting stuff.
So hopefully
We just want Crash, though.
at this point I just want Crash Bandicoot. I don't care if he's the 6th one or first one in this new.
He just has to be in it, and then we're good. We're good after that, okay? We don't need any more.
Then it could be the rest could be all Fire Emblem.
All of them, literally, have all of them.
Yeah. So all right, that's the Fire Emblem discussion. I had to get it off my chest because it has been bothering me for a little bit. Now we're gonna go to the main topic of the show, and this one is gonna be is a huge anime discussion. Now,
Yeah, we're changing it up finally.
we're finally because we've mentioned anime in the past. We've talked a little bit about it, but now we're gonna have a full episode. Now, the point of this episode is we're gonna try to pick a bunch of anime that we think is a good introduction to the series. Now, the reason we say that is because anime seems to be one of the most divisive kind of media franchises.
Definitely. And fandoms in general.
Fandoms in general, because it seems to be a little hard to get in there because a lot of anime has a lot of tropes that would be kind of concerning for people who are just getting into the show, getting into the fandom.
The medium, yeah. Especially because a lot of the tropes in anime are a complete reflection, much like our media, are a complete reflection of the culture of where these things come from. So there could be things that like are culturally accepted in Japan and in these cultures that an American person would look at that and the culture shock would be a little much.
A couple things I can think of off the top of my head is kind of the sexualization of younger girls.
Yeah, Sailor Moon is a good example of this.
Sure.
So in the original anime, the transformation scenes are like fully nude and not censored. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's
a trope, sexualizing 14-year-olds because that's the age of consent, if I'm not mistaken.
Something like that, yes. And then another kind of trope, which kind of is very similar, is that you'll have a lot of older characters are perverts.
Like your Master Roshis.
Yeah, so like there's actual sexual assault being committed, but it's being played off for laughter, for comedic sake, which I guess especially in this kind of climate, that would be almost not okay for a lot of people. So we're trying to have like these we're trying to come up with a lot of these animes that we think would be a good intro, a good step into the franchise, into the fandom, especially if you don't know where to start, because it is really overwhelming and daunting to try to like kind of narrow down what way to go with it. So
we've mentioned before that our personal favorite subgenre of anime is the shonens, but Ryan actually more so than I has actually seen a very diverse selection, I feel, of especially when we're talking genres of anime.
I've done my best to diversify a bit.
Right.
Because it is easy to stay in shonen. Very easy, because they're the most popular, the most easy to get to.
And the tropes are the least shocking.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that I guess if I'm going to toot my own horn, I did diversify, and I did kind of see as many kind of different kind of franchises. I watched anything.
This is the episode.
Yeah. This is my episode to shine.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah, sorry. Lost my train of thought now.
I killed it there.
You killed it. Oh my god.
Yeah, so you've diversified.
I diversified.
Other than shonen, what would you say are like the other two major, or maybe two major?
Don't throw me under the bus like this, because I can't name them off the top of my head.
Sure, maybe not by the names per se, but let's say like the styles. Like you could say, there's a lot of comedy animes, for example.
Yes, there's a lot of comedy animes.
Comedy is a big one actually that I found. Other than shonen, one of the other biggest ones is the comedy stuff, because it's like almost like the complete opposite.
Yeah, we also have a lot of slice of life, which is kind of like the story is kind of meandering, and it's more about, hey, let's look at like a season or two of this person's life.
Right.
So it has lighthearted moments. It has like realistic problems that happen in Japan. You get. I feel like the more you diversify the anime, the more you
Mhm.
watch that, you kind of get a understanding of like what's important in Japan. What is like the fundamentals that make Japan society work and stuff like that.
Yeah, culturally speaking.
Culturally speaking, yeah. So it's very interesting. So okay, to reel it back all into the introduction anime. Now, when compiling this list, I came up with three distinct things I looked for. Now, not saying all these animes have all three, but most of them have at least two of these. So the
Right.
first one I had, it has to be at least a good show, which I think I'm not going to recommend something that isn't that I don't personally think is a good show or worth watching. Because why would I do that? Why would I recommend something like that?
Right. So one of the biggest things with anime that helps overcome the culture shock of it is that these stories are actually a lot of the time phenomenal and tackling issues that we wouldn't normally see tackled in our media in Western culture.
Yeah, I think that's very.
So I think it's good to start with the story has to be good to great, because I think that's what helps a lot of the time, especially for newcomers, to come into something. You might be a little uncomfortable with the tropes, but you might get into the story so much so that you want to keep watching, which is something that happened definitely for me especially when I started getting outside of the shonen bubble.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay. So yeah, it has to be a good show. Good characters, good story progression, just good at what it wants to portray.
Good payoff.
Good payoff.
Especially.
Yes. The second criteria I have, it has a minimal use of anime tropes and style, specific to anime and Japanese culture. You'll notice, like, the more that you kind of diversify, a lot of things are like, if you don't understand anime or Japanese culture, it would not benefit you. Especially that happens a lot with anime comedies, actually, because a lot of things are like kind of tongue twisters in Japanese, which are supposed to be funny, but if you didn't understand that was what it was,
or like inside cultural jokes,
yeah,
a lot of that.
And also talking about style, there's a lot of things that I feel like kind of take people out of watching anime, and a lot of it comes down to like the kind of sudden change of animation style. Say for instance, like when a character's like face will become like there's gonna be like a teardrop or like a sweat drop on them,
right?
Or like their face becomes like has no. It's hard to describe this.
So I think it is a visual thing, but we're not even just when you say style, we're not even just talking about art style, but I think art style is where it starts.
Yeah.
Because different animes have the different animation styles, and you're gonna find that you have your preferences, especially depending on what type of anime it is.
Yeah.
Because in the best animes, much like in the best movies, where the music is a character, in the best animes, the animation also becomes almost its own character.
Yes.
And I think it can be pretty jarring. For example, a really good example is something like Kill la Kill, where that animation is stylized to the max, and they play around with it, and it's very jarring at first.
Yeah, but
it's very extreme.
What I'm more talking about is kind of stuff that's usually played up more in comedic sake.
Right.
So, say for instance, where you have like the nosebleeds.
Right.
The kind of the teardrop, the kind of like wavy bodies like going away, like where the animation changes suddenly for comedic effect, which I think would be jarring for some people when they're first getting into it. Like,
absolutely.
What the hell's going on? So I tried to find ones that have less of that, or ones that are so much in the background that it doesn't affect the quality of the show.
Wow, difficult list.
Difficult, but not undoable, thankfully. And then my last one, which is maybe the least significant one, is it has to have a good or passable dub.
Ooh.
Which, again, is tough.
Difficult list.
Because, well, if you're introducing anime to somebody, a lot of people don't want to read subtitles. I found that. There's a friend of ours specifically who does not want to watch anime just because Japanese, he doesn't want to look at the subtitles back and forth, up and down. I mean, obviously, the more that you watch anime, the more you watch it in subs, the easier you're going to be able to go back and forth between the visuals and the subtitles.
But that's a very common problem. People have that problem with foreign film as well, not being able to read subtitles, not wanting to do the extra work.
So therefore, that's why I kind of put it in here as like a third point, that like maybe something that has, because there are good dubs. I'm not going to be one of those kind of snobs who says, oh, just sub.
Yeah.
Not just pure Japanese. You got to speak Japanese to actually enjoy it.
I would argue, and I think these are few and far between, but I would even argue that there are some anime that play better with the dub than in original. They're rarer. We prefer original usually between the two of us. But
Yeah,
I have heard some dubs where I'm like, I like this better than the.
Dragon Ball Z.
That's the prime example. You
'Cause-
laugh, but
well,
I
yeah,
have a
because-
hard time watching it in original language. I almost can't. Maybe it's the bias of having grown up with it and the nostalgia factor, but like
that probably plays a role. But also, yeah, I mean, I guess the same would it be for me too, because Dragon Ball Z.
Goku is a grandma. All right.
Yeah, Goku's a. So
That's
yeah,
all I gotta say.
that's the 3 general rules. Now I will come back to them when the time comes when I'm talking about specific ones, because not all of them on my list fit the criteria perfectly. It's just the best I could come up with off the top of my head
Sure.
of what would work. Now, did you want to go first? Do you have an anime that you would like to suggest as an intro?
Okay, so right off the top, I'm gonna say I did not take the list as academically as you did.
Oh, of course not,
I'm
yeah.
just gonna be talking about animes that I like.
Oh, perfect.
But actually, now you've given me that criteria, I think you should go first. I think because you have this prepared kind of list, I don't want to step on your things here. I like where you went with it.
I think the first and obvious one, which I'm going to steal from you because there's no way that you didn't think about this, it's going to be Death Note. I think Death Note is one of the best intro animes could ever be. Now, I'm not talking about the movie, even though the two Japanese movies are really good that do the story but differently. They do that very well. I'm not talking about the dumb Netflix movie, which is just horrendous.
Maybe in the future when we get a Patreon, we'll do like a bonus episode where we just destroy that movie because it's not, that one's gonna be pessimist versus pessimist. All right? Like,
yeah. Who's the more pessimistic?
Who hates it more?
Yeah, exactly. So Death Note is a great way to start. Death Note is basically the story is a notebook just drops out of the sky one day, and the notebook allows people to write down a person's name if they know their face and kill them within 30 seconds. Now, you can detail how to do it. There's a lot of other rules involved in this, but that is just the general premise. And it is, like, you think about it, like, it goes a lot of different directions than you think it would, but in a good way.
In the best way where you didn't see it coming. And sometimes even when you thought you wanted things to go a different way, the way that they go is so satisfying or so interesting that like you can't help but go with it.
Yeah, I think this one has probably one of the best, if not the best, story on the list here.
I think so too.
I really think that, and also the biggest draw for the show is that it takes itself very seriously and it's very intelligent. Because the whole thing ends up being a battle of wits between our antagonist and our protagonist.
And a very cat and mouse type game.
Yeah, so there's a lot of great deductions. There's a lot of great, like, just the whole thing.
There's a lot of great, like, plotting and meticulous kind of decisions.
Yeah. The pacing for, like, the first 25 episodes
is phenomenal.
Is some of the best. It has also some of my favorite characters in all anime. People are very complex. It's not very... I mean, there is some kind of simplistic motives somewhat, but I think the characters are, for the most part, complex. So going back to the criteria, it's obviously a good show. And the tropes, there are some. I will say there's a little bit. There is a side character named Misa Misa. Mm-hmm. She's kind of your typical kind of high-pitch girl in anime, but like... Then again, she also is a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah, and also she's one very specific part of the show. I feel like a lot of the tropes are concentrated around her character and her subplots.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas the other characters are allowed to just be very kind of normal characters, especially for anime.
Yeah.
Like we're basically dealing with a great detective and a great criminal.
That's kind of the idea, yeah.
Which is something that's so accessible. And the thing about Death Note is we have to start with this one for this episode because it is the best in terms of introducing somebody to anime that doesn't really know anime, that feels kind of overwhelmed with the tropes or overwhelmed with the culture shock that we were just talking about. That's probably the best one on that list. Like if we're in my opinion, I don't know what else is on the list, but in my opinion, because I've seen how Death Note can transcend. Like my family, for example, they're into anime a bit, not too much, not as much as me.
Yeah.
Maybe my little sister's second, but even my dad has seen Death Note. Death Note is very far-reaching because of its simplicity, because of its great writing, because and even coming out of shonens, myself and even for you, it's almost like a pseudo shonen thing because they don't have these powers. They're not it's not a physical contest, but there is energies involved. There is. You know what I mean? They do have those visuals, and they kind of do have like a Goku Vegeta type, almost type relationship, or like not in the same ways, but in the way that two characters are like linked, you know, and carry a series, and their battle carries a series, their conflict,
Yeah.
that kind of, the rivalry is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree on the rivalry aspect of that for sure. In terms of the dub, I was actually forced on my fourth rewatching of it because I've rewatched this show so many times. On my fourth rewatching, because Eva does not do subs at all, so I was forced to listen to the dub, and for the most part, it's okay. But then again, I might have high standards for dub because like I only like really good dubs. It'll take a lot for me to watch a show dub only. So
Right.
the dub is okay. I don't like the detective character. L is the name of the character. I think that his voice is too deep and it doesn't fit very well. I also like the scheming doesn't sound as well in
It
English.
doesn't come off as clever.
As clever, yeah.
And that maybe that's, you know, those are the kinds of things that slightly get lost in translation, and this is why we say, like, we're not purists in the sense that we'll like hate you if you say you watch, you know, the dubs.
No, apparently.
But there are a lot of subtleties that are lost in the translation. There are a lot of language, you know, maybe slangs or very specific language things that don't translate through.
One of the things I noticed kind of is that because Light has a subtle way of changing the way he speaks depending on whether or not he's alone or if he's with somebody else. Because he has this persona of being this very smart kid.
Very
like
good student.
And then, but when he's by himself, he's very conniving. He's very meticulous.
It's very sinister.
And then there's a subtle difference in like the Japanese voice that you can kind of tell when he is talking by himself or when he's talking with somebody else, where he has this facade. So like that, those kind of things I think are missing a lot. So, but anyway,
the English doesn't do that at all.
Well, there is a bit of a difference, but
not enough to.
Not enough, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but besides that, the story's really good. I check it out. It's 37 episodes, so it is kind of on the longer side.
But it's really only 26 episodes.
25. 25. So
fair.
There is the criticism. I guess I can't. I wanted to ignore this.
We have to get to it. I'm sorry.
There is a certain plot point that happens. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, because this is supposed to help people pick up shows.
This is going to be one of the only times that our podcast is going to try to stay as spoiler free as possible, because we actually do want to try to encourage you guys to check these series out and try to get into anime, because we know that a lot of the time the people that are kind of scared, there's so many things that they're going to end up liking once they get past the initial overwhelming nature of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what we're trying to do. So in this case, we're going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. No promises, though. No promises, though.
So, yeah, so there is a plot point that changes everything in episode 25, and then after that, the show does lose quality. And it does lose a lot of things.
Only slightly, though.
Again, but it'll depend on the person watching it and how it affects them. It is going to be very subjective. For me, it does hurt the show a bit, but not enough for it to like bring down the entire score of the show. Because I still, it's in my top 5 favorite animes of all time for a reason. I think it just nails the pacing, the tension, the rivalry. It nails all these points so well.
Listen, I like to be dramatic for effect and say that I only watched the 25 episodes, but that's not really true. I'm more falling in the same camp as you, where it did hurt the show, maybe a lot, slightly more than for you.
Okay.
For me, I took it really badly because up till then I thought this was perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it really was. Like those first 25 episodes, like I would have a hard time hearing an argument to say that those weren't pretty much perfect.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Now, would you like to recommend one?
Yes, I would. So, this has got to be on your list, I'm assuming. So I'm going to steal one from your list.
Well, we'll see.
We talked about this when we talked about animes before, but I think in terms of introductions to anime, this is going to be a funny one, but I'm going to say specifically Dragon Ball Z. I'm going to do it. And the reason why I want to go with a shonen is because shonens, like we said, are probably the safest one. But Dragon Ball Z is specifically probably the biggest shonen of all time. And also...
Okay, you want to hear a shocker right now?
Yeah, I do.
No, I have 0 shonen, I believe.
I figured you would, because it's the easy shot to take.
Well, it's
And
not even that. I feel like a lot of shonens, they do kind of require, they do use a lot of the tropes. And the reason I didn't also pick Dragon Ball Z specifically is because I assumed everyone had already seen. Like, if you think about it, a lot of people grew up with Dragon Ball Z, if not seen it, understood it, and understood what it was about.
right.
So that's kind of the reason why I didn't pick it. But you know what? You might be right. There might be a lot of people that have not checked out the series at all.
There might be, and honestly, if we're talking about introduction to anime, I think that most people probably will end up starting with a shonen. That's probably the most likely, just because those are usually the more popular ones
That's
in
true.
my experience.
Right. Okay.
And also, just because of the way that Dragon Ball Z was so far reaching, I feel like the tropes are still there, but they're very diminished.
Okay.
In my opinion, obviously the dub thing is. I mean, we've said it. I can't watch it.
in sub,
But
yeah.
I can watch it in Spanish though. I used to watch it in Spanish, which is
Okay.
insane. So that's gonna be my easy gimme on that one.
Okay, another problem I have with Dragon Ball Z is that I think a lot of it is, I don't want to say blinded, but nostalgia definitely plays a huge role in
Yes,
why I love the
I
series
will
so
admit.
much. So it's tough for me to, like, say for instance, suggest watching Dragon Ball Z past the Frieza saga, because the Frieza saga is where I feel like the show kind of peaks.
Believe it or not, I would actually recommend people to stop at Frieza.
Really?
I know that's a little extreme, but I just mean in terms of the quality, because I feel like Dragon Ball Z gets a bad rap because it went on a certain amount of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, much like Death Note, after Frieza, the quality dips.
Yeah.
But it goes on for a lot longer after that, so that's the problem.
Yeah.
And also, the way the show is structured is it's building up to the Super Saiyan moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The whole show, it's mystified, it's referenced, it's built up.
Yeah.
And so when you get that crescendo, it's such a satisfying finish for the show. So in terms of this list,
yeah,
I'm gonna make that caveat that I'm actually recommending people stop after the Frieza saga for the purposes of this list.
Dragon Ball Z might just be one of those ones that is almost, I don't want to say required viewing, but like so that people have an understanding for why there's such a love for this genre. It's good to watch Dragon Ball Z to get an idea for what was so good about it in the first place. But I do feel like it is tough to get into it because nowadays, like back then, that was the only thing we knew from anime. So like having 12 episodes dedicated to one fight. Back then it was like, well, this is all we had, but like nowadays, the pacing you can tell is really forced.
Yeah,
it's really too long to wait.
It's gonna be ironic, but one of the caveats I'd add to your list that this pick completely goes against is, and again, that's why I want to do the reduction to episodes.
Yeah,
is that I think for me it's easier to digest and get into the 26 kind of episode series.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe like in the 30s.
Okay, so you want
I feel like when you're talking about anime and you get into those series that get into the 200s with the episodes, that overwhelms people right away. That takes them out almost right away.
That's not
like I don't want to watch that. Just like people don't like to watch 3-hour-long movies. They're just like, no.
That is not something I thought about. That is a great criteria. Probably something under 100 episodes, but even that might be a bit, because like that's one of the big reasons, but not the only reason why I won't watch One Piece. Because One Piece is up to past 900 episodes.
Yeah,
it's not, for me, it's not worth it.
And unfortunately, people tell me that it's really good. Like I have a lot of friends who are big fans of One Piece, and what the stuff that they tell me about it, it sounds like something I would love, but no one has a defense for the amount and for how long it is.
No, well, I mean, a lot of people actually say if you want to get into One Piece, read it. And I probably don't disagree because the way they do filler is not good. It's not like Naruto, where Naruto is like, okay, well these 12 episodes are going to be filler, so you can just skip that and there's not a problem. The problem with One Piece's filler is that it's actually interlaced with canon stuff. So you can actually skip full episodes.
So in an attempt to make it feel not filler.
Probably. Yeah, kind of. In order to continue putting out the show as the way they've been doing it, they had to do that. So it makes it a lot more difficult. Now, we kind of got on the tangent there.
Tangent.
But Dragon Ball Z with caveats.
My easy pick.
Yeah.
And also, one last point I want to make about Dragon Ball Z is that it is the shonen that kind of has inspired a lot of what the shonen genre became. And a lot of those things, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of In other shonens, there's a lot of references, there's a lot of nods and shoutouts to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
And in terms of just anime history, I think it's one that there's a lot of payoff for watching it because when you catch stuff in other series, which I have often, it blows my mind and it's very exciting and it adds a lot of weight and gravitas to what I'm watching.
Okay, that's fair. Completely fair. I thought maybe you were gonna intro, like, hey Ryan,
what do you got?
what do I have?
Well, yeah, I had a freebie, an easy pick here.
Yeah, you kind of did. Yeah. All
yeah,
right.
your list is more sophisticated, whatever.
Well, yeah, you're gonna take that back immediately because the next one we're going the complete opposite way now from Death Note. I'm going to recommend a show called Panty and Stocking. You have
I
not
am in the blind of this.
Perfect. Okay, so if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've seen the show, and I should have probably looked up the synopsis, but I'm not a professional, or am I a professional? Who knows? So basically, the idea is that these two, I believe, angels who are trying to get back into heaven are tasked with taking out monsters of the week kind of thing. Now,
cool.
The style, the reason I picked this is because the cartoon style is very similar to North American style.
Right.
So it actually looks like a cartoon, which is very interesting. And also, I would put it on the same kind of level, not of like, it's like a Family Guy kind of show, where like the whole point of the show is, it is comedic. It is like almost like a Western comedic show. All the jokes are more Western influenced than they are actually Japanese, which I find
really
very
cool.
And also, it's one of the few shows that actually like actively swear a lot and use a lot of like, I want to say toilet humor, that kind of stuff, and like a lot of overtly sexual characters. And like it's so kind of refreshing to have a kind of show like this, like a Family Guy but Japanese kind of style. And it's very interesting that there is a sub because the show like is so naturally dubbed. It makes sense.
I love those shows.
It almost feels like it was more like anime influence than it is an actual anime. And I think it's really hilarious. I find the two characters are very funny. Mm-hmm. So like this is less about the story because it is a Monsters of the Week kind of series, but it's because it feels like such a North American kind of inspiration that I recommend this show.
Definitely.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. Again, yeah, the dub. Anime tropes. Again, it is more to do with North American stuff. From what
that's fascinating to me. I'm actually I would love to watch that series now. Because
I think I own it, so I can maybe give it to you if you want to check it
out.
But I definitely recommend it. This is more for your like this is when you have a good time. You want to just watch something, laugh, and then just watch the silly antics that take place. So that's my second recommendation. What do you got? What's next?
Actually, sticking with shonens here, but a more recent and very popular right now series because it's hot. It's the new hotness, but like. I think it'd be perfect for an intro to anime. I'm gonna go with My Hero on this one.
My Hero Academia. Huh?
Yes, and the reason is because we all know we're in the superhero boom right now. Yes. In terms of entertainment.
Yeah.
It's kind of taken over everything, and what My Hero is so genius about is that it's taken these superhero tropes, the trope of Superman, for example, the unbeatable god character. The trope of Batman, for example. There's analogs for these famous Western heroes.
Yeah.
But they're also very different and unique in their designs. You can feel the kind of anime influence and the cultural influence in the reimagining of similar powers or the remixing of similar powers to be different.
Okay.
I was very as a long lifetime superhero fan and comic book fan, I was blown away with a lot of these characters, with a lot of their designs, with a lot of their powers and the way they work. It's a very fantastical world that way, but also the animation is beautiful. The story is extremely compelling. And again, because it's superheroes, I feel like it's very easy to not ignore the tropes, but the tropes don't hit as hard because we're talking about superheroes. So if you put yourself in that comic book kind of mindset, like a lot of the things kind of come really naturally and just kind of slide.
Okay. So I guess I disagree.
Also, really good dub on this one as well.
Really?
I think so.
Okay, so
I think that the voice of, for example, All Might works both ways, which is one of the characters I think you need to make sure you get, and also Midoriya I think works both ways, which is pretty rare.
Okay. So here's my problems with My Hero Academia.
Yeah, this is awesome, by the way.
I feel bad because like every time like I'll say something, you just kind of agree, and then you'll say something like, well, you're wrong here. This is why you're wrong.
Ryan is the more I'm gonna say experienced anime fan
Which is weird because
he watched more, but I introduced him to it, so
I guess you win in the long run, don't you?
no, I don't.
So there's a couple reasons. One, a couple things that kind of bothered me about putting it as a recommendation. One, it's still currently airing, and we have no idea when it's going to stop. So this goes back to your numbers kind of thing, where it's like it might be overwhelming to try to catch up, and also you might just lose.
Four seasons now.
I think we're in fourth season, tentatively fourth season. And it would be like a lot of people like once they catch up, it might take another 2 years to do another one, so they might lose interest by the time it comes out again.
Right, fair enough.
Actually that's kind of what's happening with me right now. Like the new season is airing, but I have not watched a single episode of it. I think that also might have to do with I think the show's quality in general is kind of dipping a bit because what it's getting down to is we're getting training arc, villain arc. And we just kind of keep going back and forth between those two.
A very overused kind of shonen structure.
Kind of, but at least with the training, always like what would happen is like you'd have a training and then you'd have this huge arc of them not having to worry about training again. You'll have this like adventure going on that will use the training that we did, but it just kind of feels like this is interesting because I think people are fans of either or, not both. People like seeing, like, for me personally, I love training. I like watching people develop, like, training. I don't find the villain arcs as compelling in comparison.
Right.
So, like, there's people that are the exact opposite who really like the villain stuff.
And who feel like it comes to a halt
when the training.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, it's almost like it's not pleasing anybody by doing both at the same time.
Very Star Wars. Love it.
So, but I mean, I do agree, at least for the first... 2 seasons, I think the show is really good, and I would recommend it. It'd be tough to find the dub. Where are you finding this dub? Because I have Crunchyroll, so a lot of time it's really hard to recommend dubs because like I guess something like Death Note, you have to like own it to watch the dub.
Mm-hmm.
So like yeah, it'd be difficult to get.
I think that's where I heard it. To be honest, I think somebody just had like a copy of.
They had $98 to buy part 1 of the season. That's crazy.
People got money, all right.
That's another barrier.
That's another big problem with
anime. Is that anime is expensive if you want to own it.
Mm-hmm. But we would only ever recommend owning anything on this podcast.
Legal use only.
Yes, legal use only. Get that sponsor money.
All right.
So what is your better recommendation than mine? What is your next better proper recommendation?
This is okay. So I need to stay ahead of you. So I need to not make any mistakes where you can question me on them. So I'm gonna actually go with one that actually requires a little bit, if not all, knowledge of anime. I'm gonna go with this. This might surprise you. I'm gonna go with a show called Madoka Magica.
Wow, that is surprising.
This is the reason though. It's because I feel a lot of us, especially from our generation, grew up either watching or knowing about Sailor Moon.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think people understand how the show works. They also might just understand animes in general having these kind of young ladies being warriors in some capacity. Mm-hmm. They have it's been in the realm. It's been in the anime scene for forever. So I think having a show which kind of turns its head, like turns the franchise, like the trope, I guess, on its head.
Yes.
Would be very compelling to watch because this is one of those other ones where like Madoka Magica I think might, because it's more consistent, might be a better story than Death Note. I think a lot of the because it doesn't stop being good or
meander.
It doesn't meander at a certain point. It's consistent. It has great twists and great
payoff.
Great also. World. Oh, it has a great payoff for
I guess that's subjective.
It is, and then like it does kind of change once you see the movies because there is a sequel movie that does kind of change it. But I think
just for context, I've only seen the series. I haven't seen any of the movies, any of the extra.
Okay, so but also the quick overview of Madoka Magica is basically magical girls,
right?
Girls who are able to get powers. They are given powers by a cat. And the idea is that you have to make a wish. And once you make your wish, you become a magical girl. Now, it focuses on a character named Madoka and about whether or not she's going to actually enter into this. And that's kind of how the show starts. And then, obviously, the more that you get in, the more you start to learn about the system, the magical system, about the world itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it has some of my favorite kind of animation styles because the idea is like these magical girls hunt witches.
Yes.
And these witches, the way that they make them feel otherworldly is by having a different animation style when introducing them.
That very much clashes with the animation style for the series,
In
and
a
I
good
love
way.
that because this is one of the first times where, and you could put Death Note in here. I really love the animation style of Death Note. My personal favorite animation styles are the very clean, very crisp, very high color type animation.
Okay.
I think Madoka is one of the ones where I even remember watching it with you, and one of the first things they said was, "Wow, it looks so beautiful."
Yeah.
Like, it just looks so beautiful to the point where, like, you don't want to look away. Like, it's just, it transports you to this beautiful, beautiful world. But then when you have this great contrast with the magical world and these witches, it's so jarring and so extreme, but also in such a beautiful way, in a way, because it completely plays into the story. It works with the world building. We have this beautiful, lovely, perfect world that we're trying to protect against this awful, like, distorted, like, very uncomfortable, very, like, it really does make you feel uncomfortable when they're in the magical world because it's such a jarring change of animation. But stylistically, it's also extremely artistic in a positive way, where being, like, an extreme artistic choice actually pays to the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know.
Whereas as opposed to sometimes in movies and in anime and in any media, those creators, they make that stylistic choice, and then sometimes it feels like style over substance.
Right.
That's the complete opposite here, and I love that because it's one of the few examples that I can honestly think of that does that.
Okay, I mean, thank you. The one thing I will admit, though, I have not watched a dub for this, nor do I think I want to, because my girlfriend recently watched the show and she couldn't stand it, and I do think it would have to do with the subtlety of the subtitles. I think in Japanese she probably would have enjoyed it more, but then I mean, this is all subjective. I might be wrong entirely. She might not just like the story in general, but I think that so this one might not be the best dubs, but I think it just nails those other two categories so well because the tropes are actually there to be subverted. There are some anime tropes in there, but there isn't actually much, which is surprising for this kind of show. But everything is subverted in this. This show is
subverted in clever, very rewarding ways that pay off the story. Unlike some other things.
I really hate that we have to actually make that caveat every time we talk about subversion. Because,
but we really do now, though.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the distinction. Subversion isn't good for subversion's sake. It's good when it plays into the story. It's good when it pays off the story.
So this might not be the best for people who might not have no idea what Sailor Moon is. But I think, given the fact that...
You know what Sailor Moon is.
I think if people understand the genre, which I think a lot of people do, I think this would be a fun... maybe not fun, because it is kind of get dark at times. I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, but I think that this would be a great show to start with, especially if you care about story and characters, because I feel this is one of the best ones for that kind of stuff. And this is also my top 5 anime, so like there is a correlation here between intro animes and favorite animes. These animes stick with you, even when you start watching stuff that is more kind of in-depth in terms of anime. Now, what do you have?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to go to this. Listen.
Oh, no.
Listen, I am not the intellectual when it comes to anime, but if I have to think about this as a list, within the parameters of what you gave me, right? Within your list parameters.
All right.
I would say that one of the best intro animes ever, probably Afro Samurai. But I know that there's a lot of debate on whether or not that even is an anime, or like, because it's in the anime style, but I believe that aren't the creators.
You know what? This is not one. I actually looked into the Avatar: Last Airbender kind of stuff, whether or not it is or isn't anime.
Right.
So I've never cared enough, I guess, to look into Afro Samurai, whether or not it's anime or not.
Fair enough. But even if it's not anime, which honestly I'm not sure about, and forgive us for not being prepared, because I've always heard that argument just through the years. I've never checked the validity of the argument.
Sure.
But so this is the ultimate dub experience, because we've got our man Samuel L. Jackson who is one of the most recognizable voices probably on the earth right now.
Morgan Freeman and him are the two.
Yeah, they're up
I
there.
recognize immediately.
And the story is very, very easy to get into, very simple. The tropes are very, like, they're there, but the story never really focuses on the tropes, I would say.
Okay.
It's just a basic samurai Ronin story where in this world, there's these headbands and they go in numbers, and the numbers are determined by your skill, and it's all about being the number one and staying the number one. Classic revenge kind of tale. I love the animation in this.
Okay.
I'm a big sucker for samurai stuff. Anything samurai. We were just talking about earlier, actually, because anything samurai is cool.
Right.
Ryan is playing a certain game that
Sekiro.
maybe we'll get to that another time.
Maybe.
But one thing I remember is that this is one of the most bingeable animes out there.
Well, here's another thing that adds to your validity here is that it's just 6 episodes. I think
It's so quick.
it's so quick. And there is a second
There's
season.
movies. There's second seasons.
I think there's something
stuff.
like that. Yeah, but you know what? I might agree with you. I don't have it actually on my list, but it is one of the first animes I did see, and I think because it is more Western oriented, given Samuel Jackson being in it, he might be the biggest draw to watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
Now the story is like it's not the best anime.
It's not. It's very. That's where this kind of fails. Where the story is good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the story is also generic, and you've seen it done.
Yeah.
It's not anything deep.
But as an intro anime, it might be good enough.
It might be good enough, and they might want to get to like in a perfect world, for example. Maybe you'd watch Afro Samurai, and then maybe you'd jump over to somewhere like a Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it kind of gets into a deeper, more complicated story with a lot more anime tropes. But it would be a good segue because the fighting, the fluidity of the animation is very similar in that.
I think in terms of like the general idea of introing people into anime, I think Afro Samurai is a good choice because you are right. It is going to springboard you into that kind of realm because there's tons of samurai stuff, obviously.
Mm-hmm. It's all actually with anime. Like usually, if there's samurais in an anime, it's usually really good. At least the samurai portion of it.
all right, that pretty good one. No negatives to that. You're good. Man, all right. So, what can I talk about? Okay, I'm gonna talk about this one because this one, very easy one. This is anime called Monster, which. I'm going to just a little nitpick. It's really hard to find stuff about it because it has such a generic title.
Oh.
Well, because like you type in monster, you're not going to get it. It's not going to be in the top 30.
Nope.
No one's going to get it. So
that one movie with Charlize Theron would probably come up soon.
Monster Hunter, the video game series.
Monster Hunter. Monster by Kanye West, the song.
Like, yeah, you're just screwed.
Just not gonna, the Universal horror monsters would probably come up before.
I bet even trying to look monster anime would be difficult too, because there's probably so many animes with monsters. So like, okay, but besides that, I really like this because it feels more like a drama show. It kind of feels like this might be a bit too far. I mean, it's like an HBO series almost, where like the basic premise is it's really hard to give you the premise here without spoiling it, but I'm gonna try. It's basically a doctor,
right?
A former doctor, I will say. He starts off as the series as a doctor. Through circumstances, he doesn't become a doctor anymore, and then it's basically his journey to find someone that he needs to stop. Now, that's the best I can give you without spoiling it, because this show probably has the best antagonist in anime ever. He's considered one of the best because he's so conniving, he's so smart, he has presence anytime he's on the screen. So
much like Light.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Light is generally in the top 3, and this guy is generally second or first. So like,
wow.
Yeah, so like he is that well loved. So it's so compelling to watch because it does feel like a drama show. There is zero that I can remember off the top of my head anime tropes in this.
Wow.
It plays itself completely seriously. The characters are actually because this is kind of set within Europe. The characters themselves resemble more European characters. So you don't even have they don't look like anime characters that much. It looks more like a cartoon. And the show is very serious and like it is a bit long, I guess. It is 74 episodes. But I feel like the characters, the story, the pacing might be a bit slow. But then again, it is like a drama series. So if you approach it in that way, it won't bother you as much. I don't think.
Also, anything under 100 is considered on the shorter side, to be honest with you.
Okay.
People who aren't really familiar with how this goes.
The problem is that it is impossible, maybe, to legally watch it.
Wow.
Because there is some kind of dispute about it. Like the first, like the first two, I think maybe the first half is released on DVD, but then the second half never got released, or there's something weird like that going on with this. But
just a little sidebar, I don't like when business gets in the way of things like that. There's so many instances of amazing shows that you just can't get on Blu-ray or DVD because of like legal stuff.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Just figure it out, please.
So I think that the horror elements of this, the drama, there's not very much comedy, which I kind of like. I kind of like this kind of change of pace because a lot of animes had a lot of comedy.
What is the animation style like? Just out of curiosity.
Well, again, it feels everyone looks more European. It does feel, I want to say, more realistic.
Right.
Like everything is drawn in proportions. There's nothing that's too out of proportion.
Interesting.
Really. So like it does feel like a cartoon, like a serious cartoon. Like we don't have very many of those here.
Not anymore.
Not really. Not really. No. I guess like you could look at Samurai Jack, but then again, Samurai Jack has like a animation style that's more silly. I guess but everything looks real and looks serious. I guess is how I would describe that. Also has a good opening song. I really like the opening song. Yeah, I would really recommend this because like if you're looking for like a solid almost like a detective show.
Yes.
With an antagonist that's like almost like oozes evil. I'd highly recommend it. I really do.
So Ryan, that was number 4 on your list?
Sure.
So you have one more.
Oh, I have several more.
But several more.
But I will just stop at. We'll both give one more.
We might come back to this. We're definitely gonna do more anime episodes. Like we told you guys in the intro, right? Anime is like a really big part of our fandom.
Yeah.
And I feel like there might be there's more area to talk about that stuff because I feel like the pop culture Star Warsy kind of stuff is more covered.
Right.
Overall.
That's true.
So we are gonna get into this deeper, and in fact, we might even do like full series reviews at some point, or special other list episodes, more deeper lists, different kinds of lists.
We can do. I'm sure we could even do a part 2 for this. Add more criteria. Add. There's definitely a lot more.
But you said you want to give them one more, and I'm gonna let you go because I have my last one will also transition into our next segment. So
okay.
It works for both. Whereas I would actually want to put it on this list now that you actually gave me parameters, and it's obviously part of the next segment. So I will let you take us out here with your last better choice.
Okay, so to actually pick one now out of the ones I have listed here is going to be tough because how do I justify this?
Well, okay, so pick one, obviously, but give us the honorable mentions in this case without any kind of expansion, just like kind of like the...
Are you sure? Because we can just save it for another episode.
Up to you.
I think I'm just going to save it.
Tease them to please them. You know what it is.
I'm going to save them for another episode. So I'm going to just pick one. Not at random, but kind of at random. Okay, this one. I've not seen the dub for this, so I can't speak out for this, but this is a show that I find to be the most soothing.
Yeah.
Most beautiful.
Right.
In terms of visuals and also auditorial. And this is a show called Mushishi. Now, I don't know if you've heard of Mushishi.
You have told me about this before.
Okay, so Mushishi, this is the general plot. It is an episodic series. Generally, it's about a Mushishi named, Ginko? Something like that. I'm really bad with names. Horrible with Japanese names. So, it's about this character. He's a Mushishi, who is a person who studies and is an expert on Mushi. Now, Mushi... in this universe they're these creatures that people don't really know much about them. They're kind of they exist. They exist, but what they do depends on what kind they are.
Right.
They have limited to zero interactions with people generally.
Are
And
they more like animal style creatures, or are they more like godly,
they're more
mystical
they're more like
creatures?
mystical kind of creatures. Like they're sometimes small. There's just a ton of them that interact with this world, and it is unknown why.
Is it like Pokemon, where the economy of the world is based around the creatures, or no?
Absolutely not. Most of the time, these creatures cause minor havoc. A lot of them will just be just around doing
Right.
whatever, but a lot of them, there are things that like feed on dreams, can make
Wow.
people go blind, and basically you follow him with the Mushishi, who goes and solves these problems because he's the expert. He's like, okay, this is what you need to do. And there's something so soothing while watching this anime. There's something that's so. I think someone called it dreamlike, and I can. It's something you won't understand until you actually watch it. And I feel like again, it's the most beautiful show I've seen. Like everything works in cognizant. It is so well done. I hope the dub is good enough to check it out without. Also, there is about maybe 2 seasons, I think, and
How
so
many episodes?
I want to say like maybe 36, and there's a couple movies. So like in total,
Not bad.
not bad at all. You get a
Under
lot
50.
of yeah, the protagonist is one of my favorites because he's just so quiet and subdued, and we get some good backstory in some of these shows. But like I really like it, and this is from someone who it takes a lot for me to like episodic shows.
Especially at this point, because I don't know when you watched Mushishi, but one thing that you've seen a lot of anime at this point,
Yeah.
and so these tropes, like it's funny because once you get past the overwhelming nature of it, and
Yeah.
once you accept them, then they can become quickly overused because so many animes use them.
Yeah.
And it gets a little grueling kind of to go through it that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of have gotten to the point where you've seen so many different types of anime that it's very hard to actually impress you with an anime. Do you understand what I mean?
Which is funny because we're gonna have this discussion when we get to our next segment. But so the thing also about it, the reason I recommend it is because it does take itself very seriously. You might have this kind of more supernatural element going on in the show, but it takes itself very seriously. And there is comedy in it, but it's not overt. It's not overused at all. There's not like comedic episodes. There's just comedic bits inside of it. And it's just such a great show that I find it hard to not recommend it.
Right.
So with that, I think that's it for intro anime. There might be a part 2 to this because there is a lot of other animes that I have yet to mention.
Yes, and this is also, guys, this one was specifically to try to give people an entrance point.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get into like episodes of anime, topics that maybe are a little deeper, like deeper cuts, and for more like hardcore fans.
Yeah.
We're gonna really run the gauntlet here, because we really are hardcore anime fans. I think it's safe to say, like, I haven't seen as many series as I would want to, but
okay,
it's amazing. Like I'm in love with the tropes. I'm in love with the styles. So,
all right. So next topic, we decided we're gonna do what are we watching, but anime edition. So
anime twist, baby.
Because actually surprisingly enough, both of us just finished watching animes. So
respective series, yes.
Exactly. So, what are you watching?
Yes. Okay. So I just finished a series which I think is perfect for intro to anime. The series is called Snow White with the Red Hair.
Okay.
Now, just a quick premise. This is an almost kind of like Game of Thrones style world in the sense that there are different kingdoms. Each kingdom has its king, and there's a lot of that interplay with politics between kingdoms.
Yeah.
Which is something I love.
Yeah.
Great already. This is another one of those animes that, much like Madoka, is one of the most beautiful, beautiful animations that I've ever seen. To where it takes your mind to that place, and much like you said, it's almost dreamlike in its beauty. Almost like when I watch it, I don't want to leave the world. I don't want to wake up.
Oh, okay.
I wish I lived there. You know what I mean? It makes you want to live there. It's that beautiful. So the story, we are following a girl. She is special because she's born with this luscious red hair, which in this world is extremely rare.
Okay.
She's got this red hair. It's extremely rare. Nobody has red hair. Nobody's seen it. Nobody can even handle it. It's like, whoa. where did you get that?
Right.
So
Mhm.
we're following her, and what's special about her name is Shirayuki, I think. Yes, she's a botanist, so she studies plants. And throughout the show, we're kind of following her journey to become a botanist for a certain kingdom, essentially.
Okay.
Much like Full Metal Alchemist, you know, much like that trope. Um, and it's fascinating because what they do with the botany is very unique. It plays into the show. It plays into how she solves problems because she's not a fighter. You know what I mean? So we have a lot of cool like mixing of things, and you know this flower does that, and the world building here is amazing. That's on display.
Okay.
The story is good, not great.
Oh,
The
okay.
story is good, not great, and that's what I'll say is probably the biggest detriment to it is that the story isn't anything amazing, but it's very good. It has a very satisfying ending. Has a great message. You know, like that kind of good, solid 7.5 story.
Okay, yeah.
That's what we're looking at here.
Okay.
But where it excels and what takes it from being just a good anime to a great, if not amazing anime, is the characters.
Oh.
This series for me has one of the best sets of characters that I've ever seen. You know, like animes where you don't just like the protagonist and the antagonist, but you actually like the entire ensemble, including supporting cast, including even bit characters, like bit characters that come in for a joke.
Right, yeah.
That to me is very rare.
Yeah.
And seeing it in this show, because if I said that the story was a 7.5, the characters are at a 10.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like the characters are firing at full cylinders, which is something I've never experienced. Usually, if the story is kind of like, I don't want to say lacking because it's really good.
Yeah.
It's just not great.
Yeah.
But when the story it doesn't reach those high levels, usually the characters are equivalent or parallel. Not in this case. And yeah, so specifically I want to point out the main gentleman hero. His name is Zen. He is a prince for one of these kingdoms. And he's probably one of my favorite characters in anime of all time.
That's crazy.
He's a chivalrous type, wants to be a good prince for his kingdom, is also kind of young though. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, yeah.
So struggles with that, like responsibility versus wanting to enjoy his life kind of thing. Very, very compelling. Every time he's on the screen, he just steals the show. Like it's that kind of character where since the intro, you're glued to him and he's almost worth the price of admission alone.
Wow.
So very, very impressed with this anime overall. I'm very glad. And then I will say, in this case, both the dub and the sub are phenomenal. And it's funny because the person that introed it to me is one of these people that we talked about, like our friend who is more not against watching it with subtitles, but they just want to watch the show. They want to enjoy it. They want to maybe eat while they watch, you know, things like that.
I mean, I can eat while watching Japanese, but you know.
Right. So ironically, because I watch things usually in the original language, I asked the person in question, well, can we watch it in Japanese since you've seen this several times? Like,
yeah,
you'll be fine. You know the story. She said yes. So we watched it, but because the series was so good, I pretty much binged it almost from start to finish without stopping. I want to say it's around the 26 to 36 episode mark.
Oh my gosh. It's a lot to binge.
Yeah, it was a lot to binge. I wasn't doing anything at the time. And ironically enough, because we had watched so much of it, once we had decided to actually watch the whole series, halfway through, I think we switched to the English because we were getting tired of you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I can.
When you binge and you're reading, it's rough. But the dub in this case is almost spot on. Like,
wow,
perfect for the characters, perfect voices, and again, I'm talking the entire ensemble, including the bit characters. And having watched half of it in Japanese and having watched half of it in the English, it was such an easy way to have a direct comparison where I could tell that both were done almost perfectly, I would say. So I would definitely recommend Snow White with the Red Hair.
Okay.
As an intro anime also. Short, good story, not that many tropes. It's more of a fantasy tale.
Okay.
You know.
Is the story complete?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Very satisfying ending also, by the way.
Okay, well.
Which is a big deal for me, personally.
Okay. That was very well said. I will not be able to top that because I don't have as much to say about the show I've been watching, which might disappoint some people because this is a very popular anime I'm going to talk about. It's an anime called Demon Slayer. Now, I realize Demon Slayer has been complete for a while now, but I just finally got to it, which probably goes to show you what I think about the show. It's a shonen. It's the beginning of a shonen, so obviously this first 26 episodes, I think, is just an intro to the series.
Right.
It's gonna be this massive, obviously, shonen anime, and I it's tough. I think the show is overall good. I think the show it finally reaches me at the end of this. At the end, actually, unfortunately, of the season,
Wow.
it finally gets me because I felt like
season, sorry, or series?
I said season because I realized that they're going to be making more of these.
Oh.
It's set up to be like this overarching Hunter x Hunter, Naruto, whatever kind of anime. So
One Piece.
No, don't mention One Piece. No, never. So the problem, I guess, the biggest issues I've had with the show is that I was not dragged into the world. The characters did not immediately grab me. The pacing was very weird because, like, the first 5 episodes, it kind of felt like they wanted to get rid of the introduction immediately. They wanted to get their introduction, get the person kind of trained in understanding the universe, and just move on.
In the first 5?
In the first, 5 episodes. That they wanted us to move on with the show, which I think, well, obviously was not the right idea. I understand why they did it. That doesn't mean that they should have done it. So basically the idea is, in this universe, people become demons, can become demons. Basically, there's this one guy who has the ability to give his blood to people, and depending on how much blood he gives, the more powerful the demon they are. So, like, he goes around creates demons because he chaos or whatever. We don't know what his exact way.
Is he like a Joker style character where it's all about just chaos?
Maybe he has like a structure.
Oh, okay.
So like he's obviously the top of the pyramid, but then he has like these upper demons, and then there's
no rule of 2 going on over here.
No. So basically, the premise is you're the main character. His family gets murdered by this guy.
Nice.
His sister's turned into a demon, but he's able to make her so that is able to almost train her, or like she's able to keep enough of her humanity where she doesn't eat people and she doesn't partake in a lot of the demon kind of stuff.
Right.
Which is incredibly rare, like almost unheard of apparently in that universe. So he decides to become a demon slayer so that he can find a way to bring his sister back to being a regular person. So that's like the main premise of the show.
That's a good premise.
Yeah, it's a good premise. Like a lot of the stuff is just good. There, like as I kept waiting to be like, okay, now I'm invested. Like the best things the show has actually is animation. Like the animation is beautiful. It's crisp. It's all the action is so done so well. I think it's just failing in having an interesting and engaging story. It just feels like another shonen, which like it is, but like it doesn't have enough of a twist for me to really like it. There's especially, you were talking about how there's a good ensemble in the one that you're watching.
Yes.
This one does not have a good ensemble. There's one side character who is the most annoying character I've seen in a while, at least.
I thought you were going to say in any anime.
I was tempted to, but I don't know if I could. I don't want to risk that because it's probably more annoying. But like, he's like a whiner. He's a scaredy cat, and like I'm watching in Japanese, and his voice is just so high pitched that anytime he's like, "Oh, please, I don't want to," like it's so annoying. And I don't like his characterization at all.
Right.
As opposed to another character, because like he's part of their like it ends up being a trio. Yeah, it ends up being a trio. The other one I actually really like. He's the more like, I want to say kind of Vegeta-like, where like he's a rival to Tanjiro, who's the main character. He wants to best him and stuff, and like so he's interesting. He's good. And then like so like it takes a while. Like it becomes a monster of the week kind of thing, where like arcs are based on fighting specific demons.
Right.
And I don't know, it just wasn't as engaging to watch. Like, I felt like, it just felt like another, again, okay, so here. It didn't feel like Hunter x Hunter, which felt like a fresh take on the shonen genre. This feels like just another shonen. That's how I would describe it. So I give the show maybe a 7.5 at the moment.
Wow.
And that's more so for the animation style, and then like it did kind of pick up on the later half of the series. It is 26 episodes.
Sounds like it ultimately did draw you in, if late.
Yes, we do have. You know how it drew me in? Training. That's all you need from me.
I gotta say, and I don't know if I'm speaking for both of us here, Ryan, but speaking for myself, One of my favorite tropes in any anime is any kind of training.
I really like training.
Not even just shonen stuff, but like even in an anime where, let's say, a character has to learn a profession or has to learn a skill or has to
Yeah.
any kind of training or expanding of knowledge is one of my favorite anime things ever.
So yeah, so hopefully the show will pick up for me. But like I apparently I'm in the minority here because I look on it. It's like in the top 20 animes of all time right now. So like there's something that's just not clicking with me. There's something that's missing that it could be me, but I don't know. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think with that, that's probably that's the end of the episode, guys.
That's the end of the episode. So you can follow me personally on Instagram at Notorious2099. We also have now a OVP Facebook page and OVP Twitter as well, which I will get back to fixing and get on top of. Sorry, the two people that probably follow us on Twitter. So, guys, for this one, I'm curious. I'm curious to know if you are curious now and checking out any of these series, what you think of anime in general. What are some of the tropes? What are some of those things that you've heard maybe that keep you away? Well, if you have seen some of these series, what are your thoughts on them? What are some of your favorites? What are some of your favorite characters? We really do. We love this stuff. And the thing with anime is that it covers such a wide range of the types of stories that it tells that the amount of classic characters are almost endless. You know what I mean? Even more so than even a comic book world, for example. Like, I feel like there are so many amazing, compelling anime characters out there.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things, actually. Just looking at characters alone. Like, sometimes I haven't even seen a series, but I look at a character, I'm like, that's cool. I want that.
All right. I'll see you guys next time.